Good afternoon, everyone, all 10 members. Diana Eighth, I'm the moderator for today, and it is my pleasure and privilege to present our speaker today. Michael Podolny will be talking about TAN method overview. And here is Michael.
You all know, there's no strangers here. There are no newbies. There's nobody who hasn't been to at least 2010 classes, you know, or lessons, etc. So there's no reason for us to go over everything in you know, from head to toe. What I want to do today is I want to focus on an aspect of TAN that this is my guest. You're also known by, who was introduced as of today, you know, by, yeah. And we can give him a handout. Great. So there is one person who doesn't know the TAN method, who's never been to a TAN class, or maybe one, because I think he was at one TAN meeting. By the way, I was in my work in Ghana, I have been told I talk too fast. So I'm really working to try to slow down how I talk, because that's not my nature. Nature is to be like a sort of crazed, you know, gerbil. All right. So there's two things that I want to focus on today. And you could read this as well as I do, but first of all, you know, as TAN has evolved over the years, you know, the understanding of the TAN methodology as opposed to TAN the organization has somewhat lost its focus, in my opinion, as the, you know, beloved founder and writer of the TAN methodology. So since I insist on doctrinal purity.
Like symmetry.
No, it doesn't have to be. When we're dealing in the areas of faith, symmetry is not required. Just blind faith. But seriously, the TAN methodology was developed for very specific purposes. It was not kind of developed in a vacuum. It wasn't developed kind of like as a general thesis on how you should be doing networking. It was developed to promote the growth and success of a business, of a professional service business. Before there was a TAN methodology, there was a networking process that the Podolny group used to grow its practice and train its associates in various parts of the country. When TAN was formed, that methodology was taken and it was turned into something more generic that could be used for other people to grow and promote their practices. Now, TAN, the organization, has become a wonderful place where people go for mutual support. People really revel in the connections they make. They revel in the support they get from various people. But the TAN methodology, in contrast, is a very specific process, and it's a process for business development. So one thing that I like to point out to people is that if you are in fact interested in developing your practice, if you are not happy with the amount of sales you have, the amount of referrals you have, if you're not happy with the resources you have to do business, the use of the TAN methodology and really immersing yourself into that methodology and understanding that's a methodology to be used literally on a day by day by day basis, all right, is the tool that you probably should be thinking about using. The other thing that I want to really focus on today is the fact that this is a whole system. And, you know, as defined by Craig DeForest, okay, our lamented, departed, you know, colleague. And Craig would always talk about how every component piece works together, that things don't work by themselves. You don't just like isolate various things. It's a I'm going to call it an unfortunate byproduct, an unintended consequence of the way that we have our meetings and that we teach the lessons, is that they tend to come off as very kind of like, one-off pieces. Okay, well, you can use this piece, and you can use this piece, and we lose this aspect of understanding that, no, you use the whole system. I mean, if I'm struggling for or want to use an analogy, I would say, think about hiring a landscaper to work on your yard, okay? Well, we have the person who cuts the grass, right? And we do the person who prunes, and there's, the part that does, fertilizing, and there's people who, and tell you like what plants you should plant where. And those are all pieces, but if they're not integrated as a whole system, your yard isn't going to look very good. All right? You can't just do one and not do the other, et cetera. And they affect each other, right? What plants I put in, where I put them in is going to affect how I run the irrigation. What kind of fertilizer do I put in? And how does that affect, where light is and all these things. So these are the two things that I really want to focus on. We're not going to cover the whole course. We're going to focus on two aspects. One is the business planning, market research, which is basically lessons 1 and 2, and then how we carry that into our one-on-one networking, which is the next 3 lessons. So you'll see that I've said here, first of all, under my outline, which I'm going to talk about setting the stage. So I want you to, first of all, just by yourselves, there's 5 questions here. Okay? And go through and answer these for yourself. So the first, I'll just read them for the benefit of since we're recording this. The first question, if you're going to do this for yourself at some later time, are you satisfied with what your practice is doing for you? That means you wake up, you sit there and say, yes, my practice is just great. I have as much money as I want. I have the clients I want. Everything is perfect. Number 2, have you even defined what your practice is supposed to do for you? So if we think about question 1, how can we answer whether we're satisfied with it if we haven't defined what it's supposed to do? Number 3, what is your end game? What is it ultimately that you personally want to get from your practice? Number 4, if you don't have an idea where you're ultimately going and what is required to get there, you're missing the cornerstone of the whole. That's not a question, that's a statement. So I guess at this point, we have 3 questions. And if you're not happy with your practice and you don't have a firm vision of what you want to achieve, I'm going to ask you, are you willing to work and change and do things necessary to make it change? So let's just say, raise of hands. Ralphie's not allowed to answer because he's late and he did not register, and he is buying everybody drinks afterwards as his penance. For you who might be in Arizona or who might be looking at this later online, don't be late and make sure you register. And by the way, it's not happy hour drinks, it's full price drinks, Rocky. All right, who's satisfied with how their practice is doing? Raise your hands. Okay, good start. If everyone was satisfied, let's go get drinks now. How many of you define what your practice is supposed to do for you? Hey, okay, we're better on that. So that's good. So at least we know where we want to go, even if we're not happy of where we are in terms of getting that. How many of you know what your end game is? Okay. There was a sort of what was that? I wish you did. Okay. All right. And the 4th question, since one of it was not a question, are you willing to work at it? Are you willing to change? Bob, are you really willing to?
Not only am I willing to, I'm in the process of doing exactly that.
All right, good man.
And found some new things to do. It's a new I mean, I'm not completely dissatisfied,
Mhm.
but I know there's a better way.
Okay.
Some
Okay.
more things I can do.
Okay.
I'm excited about it, actually.
Right. So in lesson 1 of the TAN course, we talk about how do we set up, how do we determine what it is we want to achieve. We talk about setting our own basic goals. So what are the variables that we should be considering when we think about what our practice is supposed to be, what the end game is supposed to look like? And you didn't think I was just gonna like wait here and quiet?
You're gonna have to say that again, because I was one step behind.
Okay. So in the first lesson, all right, which you've heard how many times?
Too many times.
Too many. Too many times. We talk about the variables that you should be looking at when you want to consider both what your end game is
Right.
and what you want your practice to be. Okay? What are some of these variables?
Well, you have to figure out what your life goals are and the
Okay.
variables. What do you want out of your life as a whole? Or how does this come to
That might be
an end to
one,
that?
right? Could we be more specific? Could we be?
Revenue.
Well, revenue might be a business goal.
Right.
Okay. How about, let's talk about personal goals.
Right.
Well,
It's personal.
let's just talk about the variables. Right? Isn't time a variable? Like, how long do I want to do this?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Time.
Do I want to do it for 5 years, 10 years? Steve's going to do it in like multiple lifetimes, as best I can tell.
Time. Right.
Right?
Time.
But seriously, no, some people say, I want to die with my boots on.
Right.
Right? They say, I cannot conceive of a world where I don't work. Some people say, I mean, I have a niece who visited us who's going to retire at 47. Actually, she's going to transition. She's not going to retire. But she's been on one of these things where I'm keeping my expenses low, I'm saving my money. She knows exactly when she's going to stop doing her current incarnation of full-time work. All right, so time is one. What would be another one? Greg, you're a financial planner. So if we have a point in time, then what else do we need to know in terms of end game?
What's going to maintain a quality of life?
Right. So what we need to know what that quality of life looks like
Right.
quantitatively, right? How much money do I need each year? Where is it going? What's it being spent on? And qualitatively, like what am I going to be doing at that particular moment in time, et cetera. So this gives us, I mean, actually, when we think of our own personal end game, it's not that complicated. It, you know, one of my favorite things having to do with most aspects of this is that it's really not that complicated, but running a marathon's not complicated either. And a marathon's not easy. So just because things are not complicated doesn't mean that they're easy.
Right.
So certainly, you know, the financial planners will know that when people go through this process, it's not an easy process trying to think about what things are going to look like on the other side after you go in the cocoon and you come out of the cocoon and you're no longer that person who works. Let's say, or defines themselves by work as your full-time activity. So that gives us a personal end game. Now that translates into, right, a business end game. Because how are we going to fund that economic requirement? Most of us, it's going to be through our practice, our business, right? So in lesson 1, and this is, this is really critical in terms of when we think about the whole systems aspect of this. So if we are saying, okay, I am 55, I want to finish working when I'm 70, I have 15 years, I've gone to Rafi and Greg, and they have said, okay, you've got 750,000 saved up, and guess what? You're going to need another $1 million between now and 15 years to do what you tell me you want to do. I now have a very specific, very quantifiable goal that my practice, my business needs to attain. This is so fundamental to making your practice work for you. And it's something that I see very few people in our cadre of 10 go through. I almost see it the opposite, where people want to avoid even thinking about this. I mean, I've had people that I've coached, not recently, but let's say, 4 years ago within 10, who say no, I'm not that kind of, I can't quantify my business. I can't think about that. I just want to do work. Honestly, our dear beloved Craig DeForest was that way. I mean, it was really hard to get Craig to get down and focus on how much do you need and how will you get this and we're going to get this. All right, so start off in our full system thinking with, I need to know how much I need to pull out of my practice above and beyond living in order to be able to achieve what I want, right? And then, of course, I do need to have what I need right now in order to have the lifestyle I want. And I need to know how much I need to spend within my business in order to be able to maintain the business. So that gives us 3 sets of numbers.
You also have to take into consideration impediments that could come into the business or could come into your life that will prevent you to get from here to there.
Maybe we need to buy insurance for those things. This was brought to you by our sponsor. Every one of we are sponsored by somebody, right?
But the cost for preparing for those impediments.
Yes. Right. And so this now gives us a basic component of our business planning. We can't go out and be looking for clients and looking for who are ABC clients and how we do this if we don't have a framework within which says that we're solving for this X, whatever that number is. So once we have that, all right, we can now look at really what goes into lesson number 2. So who can remember what lesson 2 is about, Jonathan?
Not I.
Okay. Bob?
I remember, I forgot to bring the thing with me. 2 was, I can't remember.
Can anybody remember? Kelly, you're the case study.
But I don't remember.
I've been trying to think of it so much more as a system. I don't remember the breakdown.
All right.
Yes,
Well,
I know.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's-
It's basically our market research section. It's the one that gives you the way of how to break down your practice and figure out who your best clients are and everything. All right. So if we're going to drive our practice to really go and be the highest and best performer, we have to know where our business is coming from, who our best clients are, how do we get those best clients. So Kelly, you've actually gone through this exercise. You've done it it's been about a year-long exercise. Why don't you give people the narrative, of what you've gone through in this time, what you've learned.
So it took me a while before I decided that I needed to jump into this one piece of the lessons that I hadn't done, which was really analyzing my business. So I did a 3-year analysis and I broke it down into income, the age of the people that I worked with, the industry that they were in, how big the business was, how much I enjoyed working with them or not, how many hours I put in with them. I broke it down into all of that, and then I took it to Michael and said, what is this telling me? Beyond what I think it's telling me, because I could see all of a sudden that I had a very specific niche. I tend to work with older men who have established businesses that are going through some change, either literally a change of ownership, a change of culture, or a change of decisions in what they're doing with business. And I was helping them navigate that. And so all of a sudden I had a very clear picture of the kind of people that I work with and what I do for them, which then helped me hone in on those next lessons, which is what is your marketing? Who are you marketing to? Why are you marketing to them? What are you helping them do? And so I would never have known that had I not done the exercise of looking at my business over 3 years and breaking it down into those different pieces and really sitting with Michael and talking about what it was telling me about my business. And that was something I was really reluctant to do. I just wasn't sure how to put all the information together or what it was going to tell me, and so I was reluctant to do it, and then all of a sudden it really...
Would you say you're a little number phobic,
Sure.
Kelly? I mean,
That's not my,
yeah.
I don't consider it my forte, and so I didn't dive into what it would tell me about my business.
No, I mean, truly within TAN, I mean, let's just say professional advisors in general, we tend to have people who are numbers oriented, and we tend to have people who are more people oriented. I mean, there are some who cross, but generally speaking, I mean, we've had this divide between the accountants and the CFO for rents and everything, and they sit on one side looking at the organizational development and the change management people like, like who you are. I kind of consider the financial planners a little bit like they're sort of crossovers because they're very numbers oriented, but they have to be people oriented in order to do it. Kevin, your business is very people oriented. And if you're an accountant,
Not my background.
sure, I'll be empathetic to you.
Yeah. It's true.
But I mean, if we know where we're weak, right, then we can try to work on those things. We don't have to become experts at what we're weak. I mean, there's a philosophy in coaching, sports coaching, which says, don't waste your time trying to strengthen your weaknesses. Make your strengths killer. There was actually a soccer player named Preki, retired maybe 15 years ago, who had one move. He'd do a crossover to his left foot was shot. Everybody knew he had this move. He'd used this thing for like his entire 20-year professional career, and nobody could stop him. Even though everybody knew what was coming. I mean, Harding, the guy at the Rockets, is the same thing. Everybody knows what shot he's going to take, what he's going to do. Nobody can stop it because he's gotten so good at what they do. That doesn't mean you don't need to have some aspect of what you're weak at in order to be able to kind of fill in some of the gaps. So, Rafi, you did something similar like this when you joined TAN.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd like to explain, that we can also look at what our customers are, right, and what they're telling us, but we also need to look at what the competitive landscape is and what it's telling us. But what are you doing?
Writing notes.
Okay.
Sure. So when I joined TAN and when I talked to Michael, one of the things that Michael had asked me to do was talk to other people that are in my industry and kind of related industries. And so I think kind of the way you put it is by knowing what others are doing in your industry, then it helps you position yourself within that as to what sort of space that you're playing to, right? And so that process allowed me to not only understand that in a more clear way, because I do think a lot of us tend to sound the same, but I think also allowed me to sort of not worry about some of these other sides, other aspects, and not try to do everything at once, and kind of have the confidence to specialize knowing where you fit within that larger picture. And I think it's almost like the analogy I would use is, if you kind of look in the field of medicine, all the physicians have the same licensing board, right? They hold a similar, they went to the same school and had the same licensing, but you don't go to a heart surgeon when your knee needs work, or vice versa, right? So having a team of surgeons can be more powerful than, say, having only a primary care that's a generalist, but doesn't have the specialties needed, right? And so I think in that sense, it allowed me maybe to be more of a surgeon, if you want to use that comparison. And you can't do that without understanding what the rest of the field is doing. and how you fit within that, not just in terms of within clients, but just conceptually, like what kind of planning you're doing and your strengths are and how they fit within that type of planning and within other types of, other aspects of planning, I should say. You can't know that without knowing the big picture, right? So to me, a specialist doesn't mean having blinders on. It's to the contrary. Specialist means you see the bigger picture within which you can focus, and what you're doing is influenced by the bigger picture, right? But you're focusing on a deep dive in one space. Is that a fair summary of what happened in those things to is sort of saying, go and talk to other people in the industry and see what they're doing and how they're doing it, and then kind of look at how you're doing it, and then be willing to change, right? Be willing to evolve.
Well, and didn't that kind of result you in doing some things that were really contrary to what the company you're working for were telling you were best practices?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, again, like, I think there is sometimes a mindset of don't leave money on the table because you can do everything for everyone kind of thing. And I think what I sometimes say is Chick-fil-A doesn't worry that you want a burger when you're hungry. They own their space. They're more worried about what happens if we don't own this space. Because what you get the opportunity cost of trying to put a burger on that whatever they have, the hot plate or whatever they have, is they lose their identity of when you think of chicken sandwich, you go there. So it's the market penetration they're looking at, right? The depth of that. That's what you can lose that you don't see when you're trying to kind of grab everything in front of you.
Mm-hmm. So we've got this very critical lesson, all right, that there are two tools you have. One is for finding out what really your customer base is, your client base. And we didn't talk about there's actually another piece where they will give you the message that you need. Did you do that piece?
I did, yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk, before I go on, I want to get it. So we've got three component pieces. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
So you have the piece that relates to, right, who is my client? Who is really that best client? And how do I describe what that client is? All right? We have, where do I fit into this space? Where do I fit into the bigger, and how am I different from anyone else that's in this space? How many real estate agents are there, Steve?
450 commercial agents.
Great, 450.
4,000
Right,
residential.
okay. So it's kind of important to be able to say, I, Steve Etkin, and Ron Hensley, we are different because, right? There's got to be some way to differentiate, or why does somebody choose you versus anybody else other than personal reputation, other types of factors. Then we have to be able to communicate these things, all right? And in fact, within this lesson number 2, there's a tool for that too. So Kelly, tell us about that.
So after basically after I did this analysis, I picked 5 of my clients who I enjoyed working with the most. I worked with someone to develop 5 questions, and I got in touch with each of them and asked them if I could just do a short interview and ask them those 5 questions. And from that, I got basically my testimonials from them. And I got very specific sentences on what I did for them.
Can you give us some examples?
Sure. One of my clients said above everything else that he needed to get back to managing his business at a high level and needed more time. And within 6 months, he went from overseeing 9 accounts to actually, it was 41 accounts to 9, which gave him more time to manage his business. Another one was essentially a company that was about to lose its leadership altogether because of some things going on there. And through what he basically called tough love, they not only lost the business, but they rearranged management, and now they have exceeded their financial expectations.
So were you able to craft in your own mind a marketing message out of that?
I'm still kind of working on that because it seems a little esoteric, and between the 5, we did very different things. So that's kind of the stage I'm at now. Really
Okay. One of the things, by the way, that in the lesson it talks about a question to ask is ask them to describe who you are in their own words. Okay. So when you go through this process, that's one thing that's very valuable to say, can you tell me how you would describe me to someone else? You know, another thing is like, tell me what the greatest thing that I brought to you, tell me what I should never change, tell me things I should change. Well, again, when we're related, sort of a lot of us are, are one-person businesses. So, we are the business, and so we're related. In your case, where you've got multiple people, they would have to talk about the business and what the practice does for them.
So I think that the most concise thing I could say in terms of the feedback that I got, the clients that I worked with that were in the most conflict, they basically said I was organizational triage. Great.
That's a really tight word. And the word triage is powerful, right? Because everybody knows what triage is, Yeah.
What?
Triage? You're serious? It's when you're, like in emergency care and they're like trying to figure out what you have to do and,
Okay.
and it's like, ah!
Triage is stopping the bleeding.
Yeah, stop the bleeding.
I know nothing about medicine.
Well, what are the three things of first aid? Stop the bleeding, treat for shock, call for help.
I like the military definition too. The military definition is separate the ones who have no hope from the ones that have hope.
Yeah, there we go.
Right.
Now they just have
Well, if that doesn't describe your practice, I don't know what does, Kelly.
insurance and wants to go.
Oh, right, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then send the ones that don't to me.
Okay, yeah.
One of Michael's clients, who he referred to me recently, asked me for references. And it's my 49th year of selling. It was the first time that I was asked for references. So I had to go to my clients and get references. So I went to some of my top clients, asked for references, and what they sent back that I sent to Michael's client was not at all what I expected to get from my clients as references. I was expecting and hoping that they would say what a great realtor I was, and how I knew what I was doing. And instead, they said that I was honest and that I looked out for their best interests. That was all that the references said. Didn't talk about my professional expertise at what I did at all. I didn't know how that would be received by your client, but that's what they said, so that's what I sent along. But it's amazing that, when be careful what you ask for.
But it is important for us to know, I mean, all the stuff, by the way, that's in the TAN course was something that I got from somebody I paid for marketing, back in 2006. I mean, when I went through it, it was really, very, very painful because I had not done any of this stuff, and he was a real hard ass. And I'm just a little anecdote. So I'd hired this guy, I'm giving, write out this check, give him this, and he asked, so Michael, tell me who your best customers are. And I said, well, I think it's just, wait, stop. I said, what is it? I want to know who your best customers are. I said, well, I think, no, I didn't ask who you thought your best customers are. I asked you who they are. Go back and do this statistical analysis, blah, 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 and you'll know who they are. So he was the one that kind of told me that distill this, you distill this, you distill this, so you have number one, a strong message. I love organizational triage. I think that is 2 words, incredibly powerful. Yeah. And then you match that with small case studies, small stories that say, here's what the situation was, here's what I did, here's how what I did transformed whatever the problem was, and here was the results. Needs those 4 components.
Okay. It's not a bad name for a company.
Organizational triage.
It could be. So let's go over that again, because we're going to slip into the one-on-ones now, and this is an area where the vast majority of people who are out there networking really fail miserably. Miserably, okay? If we're thinking about a whole system, right, we want to make a certain amount of money. We also want to have job satisfaction, right? When we look at, remember what she said in her A clients, not just the ones that paid her a lot, the ones she enjoyed working with. Not the jerks, not the ones who didn't listen, not the ones who, put off and kept canceling the meetings. The ones that it was like, oh, I can't wait to have a meeting with so-and-so because I know we're going to make all kinds of progress. So just because we are, top line and bottom line oriented does not mean to the exclusion of our other values and the other things that we want. So once we know who these best clients are, right, if we're thinking about our whole system, what's the tool that's getting us there? All together now? The one-on-one meeting. The one-on-one meeting, all right? For we sports fans, blocking and tackling, right? Getting out there, doing it day in, day out, week in, week out. Getting those 25 one-on-ones that I know each of you do.
Every week.
No, I only do it every month. I can't keep. And right? So as we think of this whole system and we think of the 12, 10, lessons, okay? And we think of these various pieces, those one-on-ones have to be intentional. They have to have a meaning of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. We don't if you just go into a one-on-one and just say, I hope I can think about something to say, or, I'm doing it because they tell me I have to do it, or I'm just going to do this because I'm going to recite some jargon related to the product or the service that I have, it's not going to be effective. You're not going to get the results. So one of the aspects of that we have within this is that all the stuff we did in lessons 1 and 2 give us the material that we should be taking into our one-on-ones. And specifically, it should be how we describe what we do and our magical stories that really fill the picture for somebody of what we do. So let's go over those 4 elements of the story again, okay? The case studies that you should be able to have, and you should be able to rattle these off in a couple of minutes. I mean, this should not take you like 10, 20 minutes to do a case study. It should be done 2, 3 minutes. What was the problem? What was the situation? There's always a problem. There's always something, or they wouldn't hire us. Okay? What was it that I saw and that I brought to the table, okay, that helped start resolving this situation, okay? Number 3, what was the result? Okay, how did that end up better? And out of the result, therefore, the client achieved so-and-so. The result is not the ultimate achievement, it's the specific resolution to the problem. And by the way, what the client's problem might be versus what you saw and you felt that you had to analyze, okay. One of the cases you talked about was a client, one of my clients, okay? And this whole aspect related to, his managing, having 41 clients, and it had to do with a much bigger issue that we were talking about, which was, how the hell do I get out of here? It was like, how do I get out of here? This thing isn't worth enough money, and I'm totally caught into the weeds, and et cetera. That was what the situation was. Kelly got in there and identified, like, you're working on how many clients? And how many are your people working on? What was he working like on, I don't know, some ridiculous percentage?
Yes.
He was working on more clients than any of his employees were. Yeah, well, exactly. Like, what?
Yeah. Great delegator.
Right, right.
Because he was a caretaker, which is
Right.
what we had to look at. The problem was you're in your own way because you don't want to overwork your other people. And so once you started, that's the story.
Okay, so that's what Kelly sees that's not articulated, right? I want to get free, I want to be, I want to have more value, et cetera. I'm working too hard, I have all these clients, and et cetera. But the real problem is you're the caretaker and you're putting others, good ahead of your own good. Now, it's not bad to look out for other people, but there's got to be balance. All right? It's not that I just give, people who just give eventually just collapse. The well is not unlimited.
Right.
And so there has to be a balance between giving. Right? And so then the key which Kelly did in this job, because I know it because I was there, all right, was this realization. It's like, aha! Oh, I guess that's, I guess if I want this to change, right, I have to change sort of what we talked about for ourselves. We have to recognize, and so she facilitated that change, and I would tell you, therefore, right, so she got the change, and when the story I will tell you, because again, she's a client of mine, he suddenly made a ton of money this year. Suddenly the valuation of his business, just based on his profitability, went up about 10 times.
You need a raise.
So that's a great little story that covers all the points. Because when we're in our one-on-one meetings, all right, we need to leave each one-on-one meeting with people knowing what we do, reminding them what to do, even if we've been with them 30 times before.
Larry, I'm
So, how many of you feel that you are really great listeners in your one-on-one meetings?
I try so hard.
How many of you feel, well, I'll tell you, I have this experience because I ask lots of questions and I listen, and I wait for people to ask me questions back. Right. How many of you get to the point where nobody's asking you any questions back? Right. Well, I will tell you that at the end of my one-on-ones, everyone gets a 10-minute infomercial. If you haven't asked, you're going to get it, because I have a mission at that one-on-one. They have to get the message of what do I do, who my best client is, here's a little story about what it is, or otherwise it's a waste of my time. And I would prefer you to ask, but if you don't ask, you're going to get it. Because I have a goal and objective for that one-on-one. I have multiple goals and objectives, but that is a particular one. And I'm not going to walk out of that one-on-one without making sure that my message got across. Just because they didn't do the right thing to ask for me, that's not, their problem, really. That's my problem. So, you can see we do all this work, right? We do all these things related to how we're going to distill what we want to do so that we can get out there and we can get the message across, and getting that message across is really critical. How many of you guys go to one-on-one meetings and you're meeting with somebody and you end and say, like, I still don't know what that person does?
Not anymore.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
How many of you have asked a client, ask a fellow person you're networking with, so tell me who your best client is? And how frequently are you satisfied with the answer? Lot? Little?
Rarely.
Rarely?
Yeah, there's a lot of people. Like, anyone who blah blah blah. Like, hear it all the time. Anyone who.
Right.
Right. Well, let's do a little test here. So, Steve, describe to us who your best client is.
Buys a building for me every month.
You guys went.
How about every 2 weeks? Come on.
He wants to own all of healthcare, and he wants me to help him get there. He asked me today to raise $10 million to buy 3 buildings. He's an amazing person to work with. He's 35 years old, and he does maybe 40 deals a year.
Yeah. But more generic, seriously, more generically, if you're going to go in a one-on-one meeting, how do you describe to people how they identify?
Well, he cares about people.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to know what I do in the nonprofit area. He's already joined the board of the nonprofit of Sea-Line Kids that I work closely with.
Okay.
I mean, he's a caring person.
Okay, but let's get some critique. Does that help you find prospects for Steve?
No.
Why not?
It doesn't tell me age range, what kind of maybe net worth that person has. I mean, he's not going to work with somebody that has a net worth of 25,000 or
Jonathan, does that help you figure out who to bring to him? When's the right person or wrong person to bring to him?
The wrong person, maybe.
Well, I might say, well, if I don't have somebody who's got like this gigantic net worth, you know, a bunch of cash, I'm not going to bring him to Steve because that's not who his client is.
Or you suggest me on my best clients.
General, though.
Yeah, but when we talk about best clients, we're talking about in the generic sense of who's your target audience that you're marketing for.
That's not what you asked me.
Okay.
You asked me who was my best client. Right?
Yeah, but within the context of this whole conversation.
Okay. So that's a different question.
Okay.
Yeah. My best client.
Well, let's try to, who's your target, you know,
That's a
market?
different question.
Okay.
My target is someone who feels that they need professional guidance in all aspects of real estate in order to have a real estate transaction work smoothly for them. Taxation, finance, acquisition, disposition. They want title company. They want everything to be done smoothly, and they want someone who's going to guide them through the whole process and explain all of the different options that they have at each option point. A teacher, an explainer. They want someone to guide them through the process.
Rafi?
So I'd say 55 years old, $1 to $5 million net worth, not less, not more. Married, probably a business owner, and if not, certainly a white-collar professional. Planning oriented, just kind of, if you're looking at the qualitative side now, they tend to have just kind of stuff, kind of person that's planning in their life, community oriented a little bit, and something else out of my head, but it escaped me. But that's what I would say is my target. Secondary would be someone who's 35 who's on their way to becoming that, very clear.
All right. Critique?
That's pretty clear.
That's very specific.
Well, it's very specific, but it didn't give me an idea of like what their need was.
Yeah.
I mean, so I bring somebody like that who wants to like get gardening. I mean, serious. What is the critical variable, the thing that identifies why they even want to talk to you at all?
Maybe I kind of assumed that, yeah. So it would be someone I would say that is within 10 years of exiting whatever they're doing. So they're looking toward that moment.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Okay.
A little better.
A little better. And?
Someone who is an individual or a business that is in a state of conflict that's getting in the way of their moving on with the things that they want to get accomplished. So it may be a business that has two people within that organization that are causing disruption with the rest of the organization, or it could be an individual that has a conflict with another person or another organization that they are now not able to move forward and they want a different avenue than suing or something like that. And that isn't necessarily just about mediation. It's a lot about coaching in terms of how do we approach the situation in a more productive manner.
You were really good until you got to the end, and then you started just adding a bunch of extraneous stuff. Seriously, when we're giving our explanation, we want to be tight, we want to be concise, we want to get across the critical points, we want to leave something that's memorable, because people aren't going to remember stuff. So in our one-on-one meetings, we're constantly trying to leave people with something that's relatively easy for them to say, why Steve? You know, why Bob? You know, why Kevin? Why versus somebody else? Kelly?
Well-established business owners going through cultural leadership or ownership change.
I'm looking for people that are serious about their money. I'm in the financial business, and I'm in the problem-solving business. And I'm looking for people that are open-minded to ideas solutions for them to reach their financial goals.
What, so, Kevin, why would you bring somebody to Richard versus Rafi versus any other financial advisor based upon that? Did he give you enough information and enough qualifying information about what he's looking for and what he brings that's different that would allow you to distinguish him from any other financial advisor?
Net
Okay.
worth would probably be
Okay?
helpful.
Every financial advisor is going to say that, or some version of that.
But I'm not gonna know a net worth when I meet a stranger. I mean, I could say, you're right, 2 million, 1 million, 5 million. I'm not gonna know anything.
But when
So
you're
I-
dealing with a network, when you read, you're not, this is not for your potential prospects. This is for somebody you network with. And you have to give them enough of a hook, of a tool, so that when they're going around and they're talking to people, that they can find something specific, okay? So when people ask me, I tell them, I'm looking for people that are, my best clients typically are between 55 and 65. They have businesses that are typically under 10 million in sales, and most likely they're going to be somewhere between 2 and 7 million in sales. All right. They have gotten to a point where there's something that says to them, I'm not going to be here forever. They're going to say things like, oh, I think I ought to get a valuation. You know, maybe I want to get out someday. If they say, oh, I think I want to get a valuation, that is a huge red flag. Call Michael. Before they spend the money on valuation, spend money on an analysis that will really tell you how to get where you want to go. Was that specific enough? Did it give you a hook of something that they might say, somehow that they would indicate that they were in that state of mind that they want the particular service that I have?
Yeah, that's a great point, because often in my one-on-ones I'll ask, okay, I have a sense of what you do, whatever it is. I'll ask, what are the cues I should listen for so I recognize the opportunity? Because you may recognize it from your world because you're seeing something I'm not, because I'm not an expert in whatever the person in front of me's field is. So I'll ask sort of, okay, translate your expertise into what's the cue that if I hear that, I'm like, okay, now what might be behind that is what this guy was talking about, right? So I think that's a really good point. The cues are really important for us to be articulating.
Anything, I mean, if you've had the experience of sitting down with clients, like I say, if you go through this best client analysis and you think about what they said to you, you know, when they were exposing their pain, their issues, their problems. If there's anything that's repetitive in these, that's the thing to hang on to. This thing about valuations, I mean, I've talked to at least, a dozen different people who've said, oh, I think for some reason everybody feels that it's time to go and get there, that they should think about exiting. They say, well, I should guess a valuation. You know what that says? They're ready to spend money. They're ready to actually go and hire somebody and do something to work on this, which means they are now, is one of the critical aspects for me in terms of there being a prospect. Because if they're not ready to spend money on this, we're not even going to get started. Jonathan.
No pressure. All right, small business owner, revenues between 1 and 10 million, and their books aren't straight.
And what's the cue? What?
What's the cue? Well, depending on what context, like when Rafi asked me that question, my answer was if they're talking about money and they don't want to show you their checkbook, check register, if they are ashamed of any aspect of their financial life.
Mm-hmm.
Another good one is, this one has come up in some of my past clients. I have a little tax credit.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
You see, that's the one that I'll bet all of us have heard from somebody,
Yeah,
right? Right?
yeah.
Okay, so those are the kind of ones, especially if people hear it over and over, that honestly, you go back and now you're 2 months later and somebody says, yeah, I got a little tax problem. Jonathan, right? Right? Okay?
I never get the word little.
And a tax.
It's a different adjective.
I have a big tax problem.
I mean, blank tax problem.
Bob?
Looking for a business owner or senior executive of a company that needs to have 100 or more employees, who understands the importance of the leadership at the mid-level of their company and wants to give them the skills to be better at that, to improve the company as a whole. Understands how that's going to work.
And the Q?
You know, if I hear these employees do this, or my favorite one here lately is these young people.
Okay.
No more.
Okay, so seriously, you want to give emphasis to the Q.
Yeah.
That's what people are going to remember. They're not going to remember everything else you said.
Yeah.
Okay? Give them something simple, easy to remember, that they've heard again and again. We've all heard that. I mean, any of us who are over, 40, okay. I mean, even my kids in their 40s are talking about, the generational difference. All right? So that's really powerful.
In other words, I can't understand why.
Right.
So you need to integrate, so you need to integrate that into the flow of what you do and what you're talking about. That needs to be prominent. That needs to be like a closing statement that you tell them, okay, so I do this, I'm looking for this, and when they say, these young people, or, I can't remember the other one.
Understand why.
Well, I can't understand why, that's when you call me. You don't even need to know what I do. And I tell that to a lot of people, because most people don't know what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of purposeful.
Yeah.
But seriously, in my business, exit succession planning is so complicated. There's so many moving pieces. There's so much stuff that goes on, and people have so many misconceptions about how to derive value and how to get what they want, et cetera, that trying to explain it, I'm not talking my clients, I'm talking about my other professionals. It's that it took me a long time to realize, stop trying to get them to understand. Just give them a hook, a cue to remember.
Right.
If they say, oh, I guess I should do something, maybe I'll get a valuation, call Michael. That's it. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And because if I am working with trusted fellow advisors, they will listen to you to say, Michael, just because they trust you. That's right. This whole part of the Trusted Advisor Network is that we're not marketing blindly. We're marketing to people, through people who know us, believe in us, have confidence in us, and that's what's going to get them to the first meeting. When I bring Steve in, all right, to people, I have such incredible confidence that my client is going to get taken care of. There's one client, I don't know if we're going to do any real estate business, but he got like 2.5 hours of consultation, on this thing and various things, et cetera. But give your trusted people the ability to make it easy for them to remember why you are the one to refer. Kevin, your turn.
An elder person either needs care in their home now or wants to plan for the future and is not really concerned about the amount they're going to pay for the care, but to get the best care possible.
Mm-hmm. And a hook or a cue, something that person might say that leads us, or that their loved one says, that indicates that that's what their state of mind is?
They're going to have the most caring professional caregivers that they can possibly get that are going to build a long-term
When you sit down with Mark, that's probably something, seriously, you can do the same thing, that they've done in terms of like saying like, okay, well, who are the people that we really like and have gone to, and let's go and talk to them. Maybe in your case, you don't even talk to the person, you talk to the one who brought it in, who might be the child, right? Or the caregiver, whatever, and just say, hey, why did you select us? What was the thing? When you were looking, there's lots of other people you can go to, why us? And that will give you those cues, those hooks that you're looking for.
Could it be something like, I don't want to be a burden on my kids anymore? Or something like that? Do they say that?
Do they say something like, I'm not going in a damn nursing home?
It's usually where my kid thinks I need help, but I don't need.
It could, again, those kinds of statements that we hear again and again are the kinds of hooks that everybody will remember.
You can ask them, did you choose us because we were the lowest price? That'll give them the cue to give you the answer.
The flip side is that everybody was saying that, I think if we get a call that says, well, if you call people, how much do you call? That's either not going to become a client or not the best client.
Yeah.
If they call and just say, well, we heard you're the best, then we know we don't even have to have that conversation about what it costs.
Mm-hmm.
That's some pretty wealthy people that they don't really care what it costs.
Me,
You want to show this guy Robert up and show it how it's done?
Robert or Richard?
Richard. How quickly they passed into the history.
Boy, I got an impression. Scalable impression.
We're talking about the boyfriend, right?
So, Diana, I'm so sorry.
Starts with R. I am looking for pre-retirees and retirees that have at least $100,000 in retirement money. They're afraid of the market. The last downturn, people lost up to 43% of their monies in the stock market. My clients lost not one penny during that period of time. And so now I'm on the second generation because I was able to help their parents not lose any money to come to me. And they're not afraid, and they're afraid to outlive their retirement funds and have an income for life.
And the hook, what is it that these people are going to say, or how are they going to describe their circumstance that allows us to be out there when somebody says something that says, again, you particularly people in very competitive industries. Okay, so people like Kelly and I have one problem, which is nobody knows what we do, and we have to get over this hump of people just like closing off, like, oh, it's too complicated, I can't do this. You have the opposite problem, okay? People in your business, in Rafi's business, everybody thinks they know what you do.
Yeah.
All right? And then they shut you off.
Okay,
So
there's a lot of people who have money in CDs that is called lazy money or certificates of depreciation. They're not earning anything on that money. Their biggest thing is, I'm afraid that I haven't saved enough for retirement and I'm going to run out of money.
Okay.
And I don't care what age they are, that's the key.
If they say those things, so if that, okay, that's good. They say that, I'm afraid I'm going to run out of money, okay? And if you preface that by, and they're probably just in CDs or whatever, call Diana. If they say those things, call Diana. Say these things, call me. You don't need to know what I do. You don't need to understand everything that I do. We've had 10 one-on-ones. You know that I'm a professional and I'm good at it. Just call me and I'll lead them through it.
What about these? I'm worried the market's done so well that it's going to change by the time I retire or something.
If you're willing to take that kind of a chance, then you don't need me.
No, I'm worried that it is kind of saying a little personal, not that much, but the market's done so well. How long,
How can it
of course,
stay
other
at
than-
this high level?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're
Or
worried
it's
about
starting
the
to crash. Is it
sudden
going to
downturn.
crash more? Is it time to do something else, basically? Yes.
Yeah.
That's what
And I think that's one of the things I was trying to point out earlier is, what are the impediments that could prevent somebody from us doing our business, or in the case of our clients, what are the impediments that could prevent you from retiring the security kind of?
So again, in the marketing challenge we have in using networking is that we can explain what we do, we can explain why we do, we can explain who all these clients are. The chances of the people that we're meeting, all right, retaining that information is really low, okay? Because they're right, I mean, we're there for our hour and a half, we see them, maybe we won't see them again for 6 months or whatever. And so if we don't leave something simple and visceral that they can remember, that hopefully is different than other people in our business or identifies us, you know, like with Kelly and I, that they haven't heard before, it's going to be hard for people to remember us. But I'm sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I'm just thinking of mine, so it's like, well, most of the people that they know somebody or whatever have a need for insurance or even business consulting, but most people don't necessarily have a need for caregiving. So I don't know about doing one-on-ones if that's really
Well, I don't know about that.
thing for me to spend my time.
You know what?
We're a bunch of baby boomers, and we all either know somebody or
Or have parents, or, you know.
Yeah.
Or us.
Not yet.
Well,
Eventually.
well, truly. I mean, again, you're not a professional service giver as much as you are a general service provider, and you're also the president of your company, and not, you know, whatever. So I think when you think about what networking might do for you, maybe it's more resources, maybe it's, you know, other services that you want to have relationships with that, you know, support what you do. But honestly, I would almost go the opposite. I would say, like, who doesn't know somebody that's aging and going through?
But there are some people that would be better for you to meet with than others. Like, for instance, a trust officer of a bank would be a great person for you to meet with.
Probably what I need to do is start thinking more, focusing on that. I haven't really done that as much.
I would say all of the financial advisors, all of the insurance people. I mean, particularly ones that have, you know, are longer in practice. So somebody who's been in practice for a long time has got a lot of older clients. I mean, I actually consult with quite a few wealth managers, and I will tell you one of their big things that they deal with is, okay, we have clients that die, we have clients that are getting old, we have clients who have parents that are dealing with this. I mean, they are intimately involved with, you know, people's lives and, you know, family outcomes. So they would be great people for you to be networking with.
Talk to Liz Lucero. She deals with a lot of clients and probably are exactly what you're talking about.
How about
So-
elder care attorneys?
Yeah. So actually, I think that, you know, well, again, you know, we'll, you know, one, this is not directly related to the lesson, but one of the tools you have in TAN is that you can search by certain criteria. So you could actually go in the TAN list and find all the financial advisors. And you don't have to wait to, you know, to by accident meet them at a, you know, at a meeting. You can call them up and say, hey, I'd like to meet you and have a one-on-one.
See, it's the people in town. I know elder care attorneys. I know several. You may not know the elder care attorneys, but if you have the one-on-one with me, you can say, I need introductions to elder care attorneys and trust officers in banks.
And this gets into another aspect of the one-on-ones, okay? Is that, so if we go to the second page, you know, and we're talking about, you know, we have different categories of people we're trying to meet, all right? So Kevin, you're talking about where are the referral sources, okay, that I can meet? Well, if I know who my best referral sources are, then when I'm in a one-on-one, I can say, not only, hey, if you have a client, but do you know I'm looking to meet elder care attorneys? I'm looking to meet, can you introduce me to the wealth managers you have that are not in TAN? Because every one of us has a whole bunch of contacts that are not in TAN, that we equally value. So now you're taking that network and going even further in terms of who you want. It's important when we look at our...
Got a different page than we did.
Oh, we do? What do you have?
We're to the conclusion.
Really? What was on the first page?
1 to 3.
Oh, that's still on the first page. That's because I took off the introduction off the top. my introduction.
Oh, I,
All right. So we're looking at number 3, all right? And if you've done your analysis of where things are coming from, all right, you might also in your analysis of your business look at, well, where else, who helps me in my business? What are the tools that I have? For example, Steve's an important tool. Almost every client I have has some piece of real estate that they've got to deal with or should be dealing with. Almost everybody in that I deal with doesn't understand that when they rent the building to the same person that they're financing in their business, now they have too much concentration of risk. And they need to do something, right? A lot of my clients need Rafi. A lot of my clients need Richard, okay? They need to build up wealth. They need to build up money. They need to do something with this. A lot of my clients need Kelly. They're screwed up, okay? They look at their business and we look at it from a best practices standpoint and we go like, ooh. And I mean, honestly, I was just with a business today, a mutual client we have, and it's a good business, but I mean, I look at them from a standpoint like, so do we have any KPIs? No, what's a KPI? Okay. So, how do we market? Oh, everybody just knows us. It's just sort of like, we're known in the industry. Okay, so we got no sales program and no marketing, per se, et cetera, et cetera. We've got this business where we're putting out various pieces of equipment and we do that. And how do we measure effectiveness of this? Well, we don't do that, okay? And we do service calls and we're not happy with the money we're making on the service calls. Well, do we track time? No, we don't do that. And this is a company that's making money and making good money, right? So, I mean, if you know who you need, right, you're also looking for that. So our one-on-ones, right, we talked about 3 things. What are the 3 things? Let's assume that within the context of networking with other professionals, we're not dealing with prospects, okay? So there's 3 things, right, that the TAN tells us that somebody could be. What are the categories?
People who are going to refer directly to us, and the people who are going to be resources to us or our clients, and there is
Everybody else, right.
Got the first one, no? Or did I didn't hear it? I just heard it.
Referrals, direct referrals.
Referral sources, right? So we were talking with Kevin, we were talking about referral sources, right? Okay. Actually, some of these referral sources could also be resources, right? I mean, I don't know if the people that you do, work with and your in-home people hear much about somebody saying, I got this problem or I got that problem, or that doesn't come usually.
More in that line of people said, I just heard about you. I just know who you are.
But I'm saying once you're working with people and you're working in somebody's home and your worker has a relationship with somebody, do they ever come back saying like, hey, this client of ours said, hey, I need so-and-so, or I'm looking for something,
real estate agent, or I need more care, or I need someone to help me out.
or I need to get rid of this house someday. And
A little bit more like a financial, like, I don't know what you do, but it sounds like what you do. I need somebody to help with manage my finances or pay the bills.
Okay, well, that would be an important one. Okay, so then maybe in your
Somebody
networking.
owned a cleaning company. I don't know if anybody does it, Dan. I need a cleaner, stuff like that.
But
Yeah,
you see, if you have a list of things you're looking for, that's also something when you're in your networking that says, hey, and particularly it'll happen when you have like 2 or 3 things happen relatively quickly that says, I don't have this. I need somebody in my world that does this, or does that. So building up those resources. So we have these categories. You should have a list of questions that you want to ask them that helps you to identify whether somebody is going to be a really good referral source for you or not. So Kevin, I'm going to use you again as an example because yours is a little clearer than something. So since we know that wealth managers might be, you know, and insurance people might be good, it might be, you might have a question like, gee, how many of your clients are, you know, what's the age demographic of your clients? You know, if somebody comes and says, oh, most of my clients are like in their 30s and 40s, they're all builders of their companies, might say, okay, well, you're not tops on my list to come back and have a second and third and fourth meeting. Someone who says, oh, I've been in private practice for 30 years and most of my clients are like my age and you know, they're all going to go, bingo, you're a guy I need to come back to again and again and let know because your client base fits very well with what my potential client base is.
But
And that's just
your clients, sometimes the children of the people that you're taking care of as well? So wouldn't that be that?
It might, I'm just coming out, I'm just saying, you have certain questions that you ask,
Right.
okay, whatever. I mean, when I talk about what I do, some people very clearly say, yeah, my clients never mention that. They don't talk about that
Right.
stuff with me. Okay, great. Then you're not, in my world, a high level potential referral source. You know, some people, you know, might. But if you know what for example, you've said, and most of you had a pretty good idea of, you know, quantitatively and qualitatively who your best customers are. Which means you should be able to add, if you think somebody's a referral source, you should be able to turn that rather than a lecture then into questions.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of, you know, what's the size range of companies that you deal with? Oh, I deal with companies that are like 20 to 30 million. Well, that's not my target market. Doesn't mean that we're not be nice, that we're helpful, whatever, but it's kind of like already in a very first meeting, when I ask those questions, I'm getting an idea of, are you someone I want to put more time with, right? Because networking is inherently not an efficient process. And if we're trying, right, this whole lesson today is the whole system. We're trying to get somewhere. We're trying to have more clients that pay us more, that give us more top-line income, that produces more bottom-line income, that gives us more job satisfaction, all right? And we know, because we've gone through this process of defining who our best clients are, all right? And by understanding what kind of resources we need to help service those clients, that when we describe what that is, both what is our best client, what does that look like, those demographics, or excuse me, our target market, not our best client. I'll change the whole course now. Rewrite. Copyright 2020. And we can change it. We don't have to like tell them. We can ask people by questions whether they are serving in a market that's the market we want to serve. And in so doing, we help qualify whether that person is the person we want to be spending more time with. We're now trying to make our one-on-one process more efficiently because we want to have the second, third, fourth meeting, not just with somebody we like, and I'm not suggesting you don't meet with people you like, all right, even if they're not in your target market, but you should very definitely be meeting with the people who are serving in the markets that you want to be serving and who provide resources in the target market that you have.
I think people, it's interesting to listen to it because I think what I hear mostly about this is being so much more strategic and tactical in your one-on-ones. And I think that there's a sense sometimes in TAN that it becomes too much work to do that. I'm serious.
No,
There's an aspect of people in TAN who just want this to be networking and they're just enjoying a lunch with someone when they're really missing out on getting tactical and identifying, is this person a resource or a referral? I can still sit and enjoy getting to know them because eventually they might be one or the other, right? That's what the other category ends up being. To me, I'm just going to go back to the example with Kevin. To me, Kevin, this whole group is a resource for you, period. If you really are working with older, wealthy clients who really all they care about is that they get the best care possible and they don't really care how much money it is, then every person in TAN is a resource to you. Because eventually they are going to need a real estate agent to sell the house that they can't or that their kids don't want. They are going to want someone who helps them manage their little tax problem or their money. They are going to want someone who's going to help get them tax-free savings. They are going to want people who are going to help them talk to their kids who won't listen to what they're saying about what they're going to do with their future. This is a huge resource pool for you, for people who need to get things done at the end of their life and they really don't care how much it's going to cost them. Huge, this group. For me, same thing. If I'm really working with people who are well established, have a good business, they want to make it better, they're going through some transition, they are probably going to need a real estate person at some point. They are going to want to talk to a Rafi if some of their kids want to build wealth in creative and new ways that are going to really benefit them at the next point in their business. TAN is a huge resource pool. It's at some point, somebody that I work with is going to ask for the skills that this group has.
Well done, Kelly. Well done. I want to go back.
Because that, other than what you said, that really applies to me because, well, first of all, I don't do them enough, and that's either because I'm busy or I haven't put the effort or whatever. But the second part is when I've done them, it's more to just be friendly and, oh, okay, I know them and I like them, but I haven't been technical. Said, how can I get business from them, or how can I refer business to them?
So I want to go back to the very beginning and what we talked about, because I told Diana I'd keep it to an hour and a half. I know we had 2 hours potential, but I didn't think it was necessary. And I want to answer that question that you said, like, people find that it's too much work. All right. So, first thing I said is that this is a system for promoting the growth of your practice or your business. Okay? That's what it is. That's not what TAN, the organization, necessarily is. That's what the TAN method is. And it is about being intentional, about taking this information, this knowledge, and bringing it into that one-on-one, into every one-on-one you do. Seriously, folks, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I don't know how many freaking one-on-ones I've had. I literally go over these, the sort of the things, my own mind, little checklists, like, okay, remember to do this. Remember that this is what's important, that you want to do that. I mean, it's like going into a game, like, or going into a performance, all right? Got to do these things, got to pull things off. I'm always incredibly intentional about what is going to go on and what's happening there. All right? It is part of the whole system, okay? The knowledge that we get from analyzing, from pulling it down, from distilling, from talking to our clients, from understanding what we want to achieve with our business is what drives each one of these one-on-ones has to count. Life's too short, okay? There's too much going on. I need to make each of these part and driving what I want to do. And it is work. And nothing gets accomplished without work. Nothing good happens without putting effort into it. We're not going to make the extra money that we need. We're not going to get the return. We're not going to have the clients who sit down here and say, I can trust this person. This person is the one who's looking after me. That didn't happen because he was being lazy.
That's why it's called work.
Now, I happen to think, yes, you put in the effort, but I find a lot of joy in that effort.
Doesn't mean it's not fun.
That's right. Go back to the analogy of the marathon. The people who are running marathons are finding a tremendous amount of satisfaction of conquering, their limitations, making themselves stronger. The practices aren't fun, but they're still getting a huge amount of satisfaction from it. So let's just conclude with this, that everyone, all right, everyone can really dig down into what they are, what their business is doing, right? And look for the hooks, right? Look for those things that everybody has heard somebody say 1,000 times before that indicates, this is why you refer them to me. This is why you refer them to me. Don't worry about explaining everything you do. They're not going to remember anyway, all right? What you do should be a secret. It's a big black box. They just need to know they're going to get results, all right? And if you've done things like referring and making connections, they're going to trust you. They know that. And do the work, but do the work intentionally. Don't just go into one-on-ones and just like without a plan, without a strategy, without an objective, without clearly identifying from the beginning. We didn't even talk about connections today because that's really a separate subject. But it doesn't make any difference whether it's a referral source, a resource, or one of the other categories. If you've got your questions in mind and you know what you want to achieve out of that meeting, all right, and again, first meeting, fifth meeting, 30th meeting, all right, you're going to make the effort you put in much more. And remember, 20 to 25 a month. All righty. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Michael.